what's up? This is Stephanie Fleitas here with Creating Within, and today I wanted to do a improv video to just kind of share my thoughts with you guys on some of the things that are going on in the world right now, which is a lot. I try to not bombard myself with a lot of news information and things like that because there's a lot of negativity constantly being thrown at us, so I try to take it in small doses so that I'm not depressed at all the craziness that goes on in the world, because I also know that along with a lot of the madness that exists in the world, there's also a lot of good that is happening every day that we don't see, that we're not as exposed to. So I try to minimize my exposure to it, but at the same time, I also realize that we can't be ignorant to the things that are going on in the world. It's important for us to be aware of the world at large because it affects us collectively, and the problem is that not enough of us care enough to inform ourselves, and let alone become involved and to care enough to try to make a change. Because most of us have the mentality that if it doesn't affect me directly, well then it's not my problem, why should I care? And so many people carry this mentality, and it's just so poisoning to us because everything does affect us. It might not affect you directly, but in the long run, it affects all of us. What happens to Earth, it may not be affecting you right away, but eventually it will when Earth falls apart and more natural disasters continue to happen. Eventually one day you might experience that direct impact. So it's like a domino effect. It may not be affecting you right now, but in the long run, everything affects us. We're connected. And that's another problem, that we're so disconnected from ourselves that we can't even get out of ourselves enough to realize that we're connected beyond ourselves, that there's something bigger out there, and to connect with others and the world at large. Everything's connected. I just think it's about time that we start coming together in unity and stop all the separation, because the mentality of it doesn't affect me, so why should I care, is hurting us. And then number two, it's only adding more fuel to the separation that already exists and is, I feel, one of the biggest underlying problems in our world today, and the cause of most of our historical issues and conflicts. If we look back at history and you look at the themes, the patterns of all the conflicts that we've found ourselves in, it's always because of a power struggle, a you against me type of mentality, one group against another group type of mentality. It's all about conquering and trying to put one group, one belief, one way of thinking above the rest, and then shaming everybody who doesn't fit this mold or this box. So separation is our biggest problem that causes most of all the conflicts in the world. Economically, politically, religion. It's always you against me, black against whites, Islam against the West, rich versus the poor. There's always all these you against me type of divisions. And this doesn't help us. This only creates more conflict. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I was reading an article about the black brunches that are going on in the States right now, in San Francisco, New York, and a few other states. And I was reading different articles from writers who give opposing views and have different perspectives, because I think it's important for us to listen and to really be open enough to hear all kinds of perspectives, even opposing ones to your own, because this is the only way that we can start healing our wounds collectively and start trying to understand each other, is to have more healing, open dialogue. And I think the first step to do that is to approach everything with an open mind and to at least attempt to listen to somebody else's, because some people can't even do that. They can't listen to an opposing view without getting all, agitated and angry and defensive. So anyways, I'm rambling. But I was reading the Black Brunch, and here's my thing. I think that what the group is doing, what people involved in the demonstration movement are doing, I think it's great. Why? Because it's bringing a group together. It's bringing people together in this particular way. It's bringing a group together to fight and to stand up for something that they believe in. So that, number one, I think is wonderful, because you're standing up, you're communicating, you're vocalizing, and you're doing it in a non-violent way. But at the same time, I also see a flaw in the demonstration and in basically what's been going on in the US with cops just going trigger happy. Things like this do happen in our world, and we can't be blind to it. There is racism. Racism exists. It's just a fact of life. It's sad, but it's the truth. But the thing is, okay, let's recognize the facts, but we have to think bigger and better. We got to start asking ourselves better questions and finding different approaches to solve a problem, because like Einstein once said, you cannot solve a problem at the level that it was created. And so if we're saying that what's going on in America is a race thing, it has to do with blacks, cops killing specifically blacks. Well, okay, so if you want to take on that perspective that it's a race issue, well, that's the problem there. Now, if you're going to try to solve that problem, you can't approach it at the same level it was created with racism, right? So that means that if you're going to stand up for that issue, you can't approach it also from a racist perspective. You can't take on the mentality. It's, blacks against white. It's cops against, civilians. It can't be a separation, because the separation, the division, the racism is the problem. So we have to find a different solution. We have to find unity. And the other thing is, I was reading that with the Black Brunch movement and demonstrations that are going on in these businesses, where people come in and they read out the names of Mike Brown and others who have been recently killed and lost their lives at the hands of cops. I think it's great, because you're informing the public. You want to move people. But I was also reading that sometimes it gets very tense, like the demonstrations are yelling, and it's almost coming off at a very attacking, like, look at you white people, what's going on, what you've done, join us type of thing. I'm just kind of summarizing up from the different articles that I've read. This is kind of the tonality of what they're saying about these things. So my perspective, as coming from the demonstrators' perspective, is that if you want to cause change in other people, the first thing is you can't put the other person that you're trying to get on your side on the defense side. Does that make sense? So if you want people to take action, you can't make it a black against white thing, because you're trying to convince another party, you're trying to move them to take on your cause, but you are approaching them as if they are the enemy. So when you do that to a person, it's natural that as a human, you're going to come to your defense. You're going to defend yourself. You're not going to be open and receptive to what the other party has to say. So that's number one. We have to approach this not from a you against me type of mentality. No, like, this is a problem that affects all. Black lives matter and all lives matter. General, why do we have to make it a distinction? It doesn't minimize the facts, but it's taking the problem to another level of solution, which is unity, coming together. This is a human problem. Black, yellow, Chinese, abusing power for fun and killing and doing the brutalities that's been going on, point blank, period. And that's the focus there. There should be that it's a cause that matters. And two is the perspective of the people who are being approached. I've read stuff that certain people are upset because it makes them uncomfortable. They're eating their brunch, and then the demonstrators come in and they feel like they're either being attacked or they're just their brunch is being interrupted. So for me, and that, what I have to say about that is, if you're a person who is sitting and having your brunch in New York or San Francisco where these demonstrations are going on, and you find yourself in the middle of one of these demonstrations, yeah, it might feel uncomfortable because we're humans. I mean, when somebody approaches your table, I know when I've been at a restaurant and they come and sing at your table or guitar, sometimes I feel a little uncomfortable for like the first 5 seconds, you know? It's normal. So get over your uncomfortableness and have a different perspective that, hey, these people are trying to make a change. They're trying to stand up for something they believe in. They're trying to care, to make some sort of change. And that should always be glorified and admired when people are trying to make a difference. You know, whether we agree with their methods or not, and maybe the method isn't perfect, they haven't fine-tuned it, but the fact is they're trying. And so if you can get out of your own little world for a minute of feeling uninterrupted to realize there's a bigger issue at hand, and that maybe if you just took the time to listen with an open mind, then maybe, you know, you might learn something, it might move you, or you know what, maybe nothing changes, maybe you don't really care. But at least you can show some respect for other human lives who are just trying to make a difference and are trying to stand up for what they believe in.